retreat. Is that 7th grade retreat or something like that? And Douglas is virtual. All right. Shuffle these up a little bit. To run. What is it? Laufen. Hold on 1 second. Where's my tissues? To run. To take. Nehmen. Afternoon. Nachmittag. Sehr gut. What's Abend? To fry. Braten. To catch. Fangen. Basketball. Basketball. To become. Werden. Yeah. To recommend. Empfehlen. It's this word emp, not a word, but
empfehlen.
Oh, there we go. Emp and then fehlen is the main part of the verb. To steal. Yeah, it's pronounced stehlen because it doesn't have an I in it yet, but it will get one in some cases. But stehlen. Noon. Mittag. To speak. Yeah, and it would be irregular too at times. To forget. Vergessen. All ease. To fall. How you spell it? Looks good to me. Go by some transportation. Fahren. And track and field. Okay. It's leicht, which means anyway, I don't know why. But leicht and then athletic. Leichtathletik. Yeah, it's two, the first word, but this part you can spell because you can spell athletic. So put a K instead of a C. But leicht is the one word that's makes it, but together it sounds weird. Leichtathletik. To help. Yeah, helfen. To bake. How you spell it? Okay. Yeah. Cook. Kochen. O sound. To read. Lesen. And morning. Morgen. And mid-morning. Vormittag. So before midday. So whether it's mid-morning or not, I don't know, but it's before midday. Baseball. Der Baseball. To see. And sehen is, let's say to meet is what I'll say on the quiz. We use it. Again? Treffen. With an E, treffen. Evening is okay. Is that clear for somebody who was asking about this? Yeah. Okay. Abend. I'll say to wear on the test. Tragen. Tragen. Night. Nacht. To throw. Werfen. All E's there again. To sleep. Schlafen. To give. Geben. To elect. How do you spell that? Jawohl. To wash. Say it like German. Waschen. Waschen. To break. Waschen. Brechen with an E, all E's in German. Okay, so you ready? Ein Stück Papier, Kuli, Bleistift. Bist du da? Ja, der ist da. Yep.
You'd like a stack of paper?
A stack of paper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you a sheet out of my notebook here.
I didn't want to go through my whole entire binder.
It's all right.
Give it back.
Okay, Nummer 1. Noon. 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 Nummer 2. To speak. To speak. Nummer 3. To forget. To forget. To forget. Nummer 4. Baseball. 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 Nummer 5. Basketball. Basketball. Nummer 6. To steal. Nummer 7. To give. Nummer 8. To wash. To wash. To wash. Number 9, to wear. Wash and wear. Number 10, morning. Morning. Bonus, to fall. Can you repeat it? Danke. Okay. So, here's my, ever-growing stack. All right, so today I'm just going to do something a little bit different than it's not really to do with our chapter, or that's okay though, right?
That's fine.
Is it? I don't want anything you guys aren't comfortable with, you know. I seem a little bit uncomfortable. Don't want to make you feel like that. Let me fix this so I can. Good. All right, let me share this with Douglas here. Douglas would like to. You would enjoy this if you were here, Douglas, but you'll be able to watch it like this. This is a slideshow I put together, and I kind of added a couple things to it. So at the end of, well, at the end, at the, I don't know, last year and a half or so of World War II, the Germans were good at one thing for sure. They were good at spreading propaganda. You know, everyone know what propaganda is? Disinformation. Maybe there's some real stuff laced in with it, just enough to kind of be, and maybe you, well, in this case, what I'm going to talk about is they were using it to scare the Allies, maybe troops or maybe even the generals and all that, because telling them, let it be known that they were developing these, what they called Wunderwaffen, wonder weapons, weapons like the world's never seen before. So nobody knew what to expect. And, you know, the Germans kind of leaned on the reputation of technological precision and some superiority in certain areas. And they scared, it did get to a lot of people. I think there's even a reference to this in Captain America, the first movie. It makes a reference to, yeah, we don't even know what they're doing. There's supposed to be all these, you know, Wunderwaffen that are going to come out and could turn the whole tide of the war, you know. That was the fear. That's what the Germans, you know, the Nazis, I should say, wanted to do. They had, yeah, that's one of the Wunderwaffen. There was, like I said, that some of this is kind of way off in the future, but they didn't tell you that, and some of it actually they used in World War II. So they had some teeth behind it that made the British especially think twice about. Well, maybe they do have something up their sleeve. You know, they're going to just all of a sudden pull it out, and we're going to be left behind. But anyway, I'm going to go talk about a few of these weapons. Some of them never came to fruition, and some of them probably should still come to fruition, especially the first one. And some of them were ready to go, and they used them there in that last year or year and a half of World War II. So the Let me get my little, all right. The first one here is the Silbervogel. And this was never built though. But the idea of it was there was a huge transport plane for equipment and soldiers. And it would be it's a suborbital aircraft. It would fly not into orbit, but it would fly, below that. It could travel much more quickly, less resistance. And flying at that altitude, they could cover a lot more space more quickly than if they, are closer to the curvature of the Earth. I don't understand all the physics of this, but I do know that when I was younger, much younger, when I was your age, and Ronald Reagan was president, he was encouraging the airlines, or not airlines, but the aircraft makers like Boeing, let's say, to build a suborbital plane for passengers. Because even in my lifetime, like to fly from, let's say, Chicago to Frankfurt, there's been no time shaved off that trip. How long? Almost 38, 39 years or so. It still takes the same amount of time. I mean, maybe they shaved a couple of minutes off. I don't know, but nothing's been improved. It's interesting. Like everything else technological has moved forward in leaps and bounds, but aircraft travel, unless you have a supersonic jet, which they don't even have any, there's no more left. They don't use the Concorde anymore, but there's no improvements. So Reagan was president till 1988. So, nothing happened with it there, but the Germans had this idea back, they were going to, the military use of it is you can put a lot of troops on this. I don't know what the capacity of it was, even a lot of equipment on this thing, take off from a regular landing strip. Maybe it would need a longer, and then land like a plane, take off and land like a plane, and then unload all this equipment, and you could move troops across the world in a matter of hours. You could be there very quickly. So it was a great idea. They worked on it. There were engineers behind it, but it never, something like this would take years to develop, and they didn't have that kind of time. But this could have been a game changer, right? This could have been something that all of a sudden you've got, troops moving very easily, lots of troops, if they had several of these things. So anyway, this is kind of these are all pictures of they thought it would look like. They're just kind of coming in for a landing, I guess, or it's like it's headed downward. But again, it wouldn't get into the, orbital range, but up high enough where it could fly faster. There's a picture of what they thought the presentation of it would look like, I guess. This is kind of all out of whack with the dimensions because there's people, they don't look like they're in the right. Anyway, but that's an idea. That's it. There's Silbervogel, means a silver bird. But it was going to be, it looks more white here, but it's stainless steel is what it was going to. All right, the Panzer, the mouse. Well, it's, ironic. It's like calling a really big guy tiny, big stocky guy, tiny, because this is no mouse. This is a huge, fully functional tank, but also personnel carrier. I think it could hold like 36 troops, along with a full crew for to run the tank also. So we'd be fighting at the same time, as well as moving troops. Only one was ever built, and all they have today are some prototypes of it. Or some what do you call it? Ones that they've made after the fact.
Is there still one left there?
No. It was destroyed. The one that's there's a museum in Munich that has a lot of these old weapons, and the one they have is a mock-up, of it. There's nothing. It looks like it's the right dimensions and everything from the outside, but I don't think there's anything inside of it. The problem with this was it worked. The one they had, it worked. It carried people, it moved. But by the end of World War II, towards the end, fuel became such a precious commodity, and this thing burned fuel like crazy, as you can imagine. It's a big, heavy armored vehicle carrying people and equipment and the whole crew, and its own weapons, its own shells, and all. So it took a lot of fuel to move it, and that kind of fuel they figured could be better used elsewhere. I'm not sure what its gas mileage was, but somehow it tells me. Somehow I think it must have been like 6 gallons to the mile, I don't know, like the reverse of what we think about cars having. I'm saying that I don't know if that's true, but Panzer, what's that? Yeah, I mean, and here's another picture here, kind of give you an outline of. Yeah, I think this front part opens up like it comes out like a ramp, and I think they'd be seated though. They'd be being taken somewhere, you know. Yeah. So they'd be seated in there, and
you could probably stand up in that thing.
You probably could, maybe a little hunched over, depending on how. But yeah, I think some people could, because you can see his legs are, you know, right about here. So he's got a little more room there. And I don't know how it was. The inside, I don't know what it. But this, I think this came down. I don't think it was in the back because the back had like that big extra gas tank on it. But this was the Panzer. Panzer, by the way, is doesn't literally mean tank, but it's the German word they use for tank. Here's the picture of the one in the museum at the Deutsches Museum in Munich. They have a lot of. This is pretty interesting. If you're into this kind of stuff, if you ever get a chance to go to Munich, go see this museum. They have all the World War II, not all, but the you know, they have the jet airplane and they have all that stuff there to go see. So here's a picture of the one that they actually had in use here. But it just, look how big look how this guy matches up. This is just the top turret, you know, or this, and then look how small this guy is coming out of the top of it compared to these guys down here. It's a big. I mean, tanks are big anyway, but this is really, it's up there, yeah. So the Panzer Maus. The Horten 229, also I think featured in some way in Captain America, the first movie.
That doesn't look World War II era.
No, looks like Flash Gordon era. Yeah. Looks like Star Wars era. In a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. No, they built these planes. They never were fully functional. I mean, they worked, but they were very unstable, though. I mean, it's a very untraditional shape, and aerodynamic-wise, this is a painting. This is not a photo. I think it's supposed to look like they're flying over London, you know, bombing. They were going to be bombers, and they had jet engines on them, but they were never used though in combat. There's actually a jet engine on either side of the cockpit. You can see there's one on this side, one on that side. And, but they had a lot of stability problems with it. You know, planes usually have kind of a, you know, a tail wing that's kind of cross-shaped like that and a lot of that is stabilization. These planes didn't have it. However, they never got very far with this, and most of them crashed during testing, you know. So, but the Horten 229 is believed to be the impetus for much, much later our stealth bomber, you know. They called it the flying wing, the Horten 229, the flying wing. And, you know, I mean, this is a little more modern version, but the idea is the same, right? Very low profile, which helps in part with radar detection, that the fact that it's such a thin plane, it doesn't have a big fuselage on it like most planes. Then it has all those angles that it's built at, so that also diverts, get the right word, throws off radar signals telling you it's not a plane, so it's really pretty much impervious to any kind of being detected on radar. That's why when we've used it, and we've used it mainly in both of these Gulf Wars, 91 and whenever it started, still going on, but they're not using these anymore, I don't think, but you know, they're flying at, I don't know what altitude, but high enough you can't hear or see them, and then, but no radar, no alarm goes off, no air raid alarm goes off, and all of a sudden things just start exploding around you. This is the beauty, I guess, or if you want to call it that, of not being detected by radar. You know, there's no warning for the people on the ground. Well, okay. So, but I mean, it's hard to, so then, oh, here's another picture of or at least a painting or a drawing of, you know, had it worked out. It's a cool looking plane, and I mean, this, there's the side profile, very, very sleek, very narrow. They tried all kinds of things. They tried putting like some kind of a propeller on the front of it, or maybe on the back of it, to try to. give it, no, it didn't look as cool, but it make it more safe, more stable. None of that really worked. They tried that with another plane I'll show you, and it worked a little bit with that one, but it's much smaller. Here's, I think, all that's left of one of them. There may be a mock-up of one, but this is the actual parts of a real one that they had. Yes, sir, go ahead. I didn't hear you. That's pretty, I mean, that's how it ended up, you know, they crashed, and probably it was somewhere in a warehouse, and they were trying to, before the war ended, trying to work on it. So I don't know. But this is in some kind of museum, because I see other things up here, other parts of the plane. But that's all that's left. Well, this was not the end of this project. Another company picked it up and tried to improve on it. And the plane was, the name of that aircraft company was GOTA, G-O-T-H-A, and they also wanted to build this kind of flying wing type plane, but they were a company that made planes in World War I, made bombers, those real big bombers that had in World War I, where I think that people in the back seat like just reach down and grab a bomb and throw it out the window, or just throw it off the side. That was the precision. This was the GOTA P, I think it's just called P6. But you look at this really looks like the stealth bomber. This really starts to have that look to it. This has the jet engine in the middle at the back. And this is the pilot area here. And it took two pilots, and they had to lay down in it. That's part of what helps it have such a low profile, is the pilots are stretched out. I don't know how comfortable that is after a while, but they're so it allows it. Look how thin it is. I mean, you look at this picture here. You see how thin it is coming at you. So again, kind of might give them a less to detect on radar. Here's kind of, so you can see here. There's the pilots that are laying down, and I think they laid on their stomachs. Look, their feet are like elevated. Like a little thing they put their feet on. Yeah, I mean, this is like a cutaway version. I thought they're on their stomachs, like they're like this, but I don't know how they laid in there exactly. That you can see in the picture here, but I can't tell which way they're situated. Yeah, no, it would be you'd have to be a special kind of person, and plus you're moving and people are shooting at you, and you know, and as far as I know, I knew this plane was only on the drawing board. I don't think they ever actually. I mean, if they did have one, maybe but I was never used in combat or anything. But again, you look at this here, what I'm showing now, and this, and you think, well, maybe we took a little bit from it, Nothing wrong with building on other people's ideas, I guess. This stealth has, this kind of, not a tail wing at all, but some kind of it's different though. The back side of it's different, whereas this, this is kind of strictly a V shape almost, but I don't think this ever got off the ground, so I don't know. I mean, I don't think they ever got past the stealth is safe, yes, but they did have issues with the stealth. Now, we only found this out later. We didn't know they were building the thing until 1991, and they were using it all of a sudden, and we're like, well, where did that come from? They did have problems, though, in the initial phases with stability also. That's the problem with this kind of plane. But they, this video you can see of like pilots like ejecting out of a stealth bomber, like maybe sometimes not even that far off the runway, because they realize it's going down, and it does. But that's why you need people who have no fear to fly these things, new planes, test pilots. And all right, so there's that, and compare it to that.
Does the new stealth bomber, do they like lay on their stomach?
I don't know anything about the one we have today. I don't think so. It looks like there's a pretty rounded, pretty good area for a cockpit here that you wouldn't need to lay down. I know the stealth fighter that they sat up. This looks pretty. There's more room here. It looks like to me, but
there's a lot of room
but there's actually still, although this is being kind of phased out, I think there's a lot we don't know about this plane. I've never seen a photo that I've never really looked, but I like to watch shows. I've never seen a photo like of the inside of the cockpit of this plane before. But you found one.
Yeah.
All right. So now, but it is being kind of phased out. So
It's a two-person one now.
it is two-person.
And that's one out there.
Wow. So they do sit up.
That left too.
And that's what it looks like, huh?
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Huh, a lot more simple than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
These stealth bombers, sometimes they fly out of Fort Leonard Wood, which is just, if you got on I-44 here in Tulsa and started driving towards St. Louis, about halfway through Missouri, you'd come to it's actually a joint base, like I think the Army uses it and the Air Force, but they fly the stealth bombers. There were stealth bomber pilots in the early, uses of it in this Gulf War since 2000, that would fly out of Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, fly to Iraq, Baghdad, wherever they drop payload and be back, by dinner time maybe. Hi, honey, how was your day? Oh, just destroyed a city. What I do every day. Try to take over the world. Okay, so the Messerschmitt Me-163. Well, this looks like a loser from the beginning. Very small, very pudgy little plane, short wings. It was not I think there was a way to take off with this one where you would drag the plane like a glider, but it had a rocket engine in the back. It was not a jet. Also could be dropped out of a larger plane. So they would drop, and it could glide for a while. So it would fall out of it, open up like a bomb bay doors, and then they could ignite that rocket, and then of course it would be faster than the plane it dropped out of. It looks like something you give to a kid, maybe a rich family. Here you go. But yeah, this I need to look up. I've forgotten the purpose. I want to say it was reconnaissance, but because I can't imagine they carried any weapons, but maybe they did. I don't know. I mean, and it was small. It's one of the reasons. There's a reason for how small it is. In order, it's less plane in the air, harder to hit something. Harder to shoot it down. But this also, they can see they put a little propeller on the front of it there. Again, stability issues because it's like somebody took a plane and was getting ready to crush it or something, and then they stopped about halfway through the crushing. Oh, that looks good. Just leave it right there. Yeah, it's like this. It needs to be longer and this needs to be wider. The ring and when you crushed it, it got all its belly all stuck in here. But again, they put this propeller trying to push more, over the wings, get more, what propellers do. It's a really small propeller. And if it didn't look silly already, putting a propeller on the front of it like that makes it look even more silly. I'm sure there's like a rubber band attached to that thing. You got to wind up the rubber band. What's that? They were hoping it, and I don't. Maybe it did create more lift. That's what propellers. Part of what propellers do is push that air backwards over the wings, and create lift. But there's not much to it, The rocket, though, just in the rear, there were too many problems with that too. Okay, well, those are aircraft Wunderwaffen. These are a little different here. So the British and Americans, as they were bombing and flying to targets over Germany, taking off from England and flying deeper into Germany, they started getting deeper and deeper on their missions. And on I'll show you the map here. Let's see here. Would be way over here. I don't know if it's even on my map, but I'll show you here. Right in this area right here. So almost all the way to Poland up here on the Baltic Sea, or the East Sea, the Germans call it. Past this island here, there was just like we have Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy, it's on the coast in Florida. They were building rockets right out here on the coast of the Baltic here. And we didn't have a rocket program. We weren't into that. That was, not like rockets like these, at least. Maybe they had missiles they were building, but they were building rockets. Like they had rocket scientists. Some people say, It's not rocket science, but then some things are rocket science, like rocket science. And these reconnaissance photos, then, of course, they took as they were flying, going different places. They're like, hey, they study these things. Like these guys, they're building rockets, and I'm sure that their purpose is to not to go to space necessarily, but is to deliver a warhead with it, right? And think about this. Before this, there had really never been any missiles before, like rockets with warheads on them, rockets with munitions on them. That would have been there were shells that shot a long way out of big guns, and okay, that was sure, but not like lifting off, but now they're on planes, or got rockets on everything. But this was a new thing, and the Germans were the first ones doing this. This would have been a real Wunderwaffen if this would have gone as far as they wanted, as they would have liked to have gone. But Peenemünde, that's the name of the town, and I'll show you. Here's what it looks like. Here's Denmark up here. Denmark, and you can see on the map, makes, what do you call that, an isthmus, connects Germany and Denmark together. There's water on both sides. Not a peninsula. A peninsula has a bottom to it. That's water on all three. But this is an isthmus, where there's water on two sides of like this here. So Denmark and Germany they meet in the middle and they create an isthmus. But up here, this is what you're seeing right here. And then, so much further past that, almost all the way to the Polish border, you have Peenemünde. And here's a close of what it looks like today. There it is. It looks a little bit like, I saw the landing strip, and there's like a museum there, because it is historical, like it or not what they were doing, but it's historical to our own space program in the United States for different reasons too, because, well, I'll tell you in a minute. So they started building these rockets. I love this picture because if you ask a little kid to draw a picture of a rocket, this is the rocket that he draws. The cone-shaped thing with the big fins on the side, this is the rocket you draw. I've never seen anyone actually use a rocket like this before. This is not SpaceX, this is not NASA. Believe it or not, it's the Nazis. Yeah? So what are our kids up to? The A4 rocket, which turned later into the V2 rocket, this is a test thing here. Before that, there was the V1 rocket. This was more of a missile. And it's kind of cool looking, actually. It wasn't like a plane or anything. It's got a rocket here and wings stabilized, and it actually had of course it had a warhead in it. And they had to put on this cart and had to pull it up to a ramp like this. When the Allies figured this out, they were using the ramps to launch these rockets. They had permanent ramps, and they would bomb these places where they were hiding where they had these permanent ramps. So then they made portable ramps so they could move them around. That way the Allies couldn't find them. But this is, I don't know where this is. This must be in it may be in that museum in Peenemünde. I'm guessing that's where it is. And let's see, here's the rocket at the end, and it, now they were not laser guided precision things like today where you can like hit somebody in their car 10,000 miles away, not like that. These had enough fuel in them, and taking into consideration all the dynamics of meteorology and everything going on, wind, and to get a certain distance. Like they could say, well, this is going to make it to London. I mean, but that's pretty broad though, right? But they did get these rockets to London though. And they did destroy things with these rockets, but there was no precision, like they couldn't land it in a building or something, a certain building, a particular building. It might land in a neighborhood, it might land on a church, it might land who knows where. And so it was really a kind of a weapon of terror, really. But with more work, of course, they would have eventually found a way to maybe become more precise. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think there's, it's just, when it hits the ground, it explodes. Yeah, so it could land in a field and explode, but I mean, if something went wrong, or if it goes the way it's supposed to go, it should, I think all of those rockets were pointed towards London, though. That was here's what the V2, this was the V1. The V2 rocket took off like a rocket takes off today, standing straight up. And that did damage as well. Here's what the V2 looked like if you took it apart. So the Germans were really advanced in rocket science. They were way ahead of us. I've heard, and so after World War II, we went on a mission, and the Russians did, Soviets did too, to get all of the rocket scientists that we could. And the Soviets got their share as well, and we got our share. And most of them were working for the SS. And we just kind of gave them a pat. We literally pardoned them almost for all that stuff. We said, we don't care. And it was called, there's an Operation Paperclip, that's a funny name for it, but to round up these rocket scientists, because we wanted them. We especially didn't want the Soviets to get them. So, and one of our first directors of NASA, maybe the first director, was Werner von Braun, who was an SS officer who used Jewish slave labor. Look at these guys. Who was harsh on these people, very harsh. And look, they're assembling these rockets. They're the ones they're doing the dangerous work here in these underground bunkers and caves. You can clearly see that they were using, there's lots of photos of this, of them using slave labor. Some people had ethical problems with this. Well, we have all these ex-Nazis working for NASA, in the early space program, but they say, and I don't know how historians, can forensically look back, but they say that had we not done that, had we not gotten these former Nazi engineers, that we might not have landed anybody on the moon until late 80s or early 90s. Like that's how far ahead they were. So they come with all that knowledge and ability already. They were that far ahead, and had we not taken advantage of that, we would have been left behind in the space race, in the Cold War. Here's a memorial. This is kind of on the outskirts of London, but it's still London. That's what they called it. The first flying bomb. They didn't use the word missile. The first flying bomb on London fell here, June 15th, 1944. So less than a year before the end of the war. That's when they finally got one that hit. So that's when I say these things happen in the last year to 18 months. That's what happened. And oops, there's some test rockets there. I think these are test. Yeah, it's real. It's just like a GIF file, GIF. Here's a part of London that was destroyed. Yeah, I mean these were real. Yeah, I mean this was not like just fireworks or something. This was for real.
How do they know if they hit London? Because they didn't have any.
I don't know. No. I mean, I don't know. They probably listen to the radio or something and find out if. Yeah, I mean, how they did reconnaissance of this stuff, like after the fact. Yeah, thanks for sending that gift over.
Yeah, that's really pleasant.
Good afternoon, Cashel. Just a couple.
There's the plane you're talking about.
Before we end our day of prayer, don't forget the Go On Admit Drive for emergency infant services. Please bring those donations next week. Throughout this weekend, we'll find some admittance you can donate. This evening, also don't forget that the prayer opportunities. Rosary at 5:30 and Mass with the Bishop at 6 o'clock at Holy Family Cathedral as the U.S. bishops continue their 9 days of life. And Ben Radford, would you please come by the upper school office immediately after school? Let's begin our prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
We thank you, God, for another day today. We thank you for all that we've learned, and we thank you for the time with classmates and friends. Be with us this afternoon and throughout the weekend. Help to keep us safe and bring us back together again on Monday to enjoy another day. You made us for yourself, O Lord.
And our hearts are restless until they rest in you.
Have a great weekend.
Tschüss. Schönes Wochenende. Schönes Wochenende. Tschüss, ciao.